John Perkins. His second book on the issue of economic hitmen is called The Secret History of the American Empire. John Perkins is a New York Times best-selling author. His book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, took this country by storm. So you quit, but that was one step. Writing about it was another. Talk about your attempts over time.
Oh, yes. It's after I quit, I tried several times to write the book that became Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And each time I reached out to other economic hitmen I'd worked with or jackals to try to get their stories. The word got out, and I was threatened. I had a young daughter at the time. She's now 25. And I also was offered some bribes. In fact, I accepted a bribe of about $500,000. And it's what's called a legal bribe, but it's a bribe, and it was given to me with the condition that I not write the book. There was no question about that. I describe it in detail, and I assuaged my guilt by putting a lot of that money to nonprofits I had formed, Dream Change and Pachamama Alliance, that are helping Amazonian people fight oil companies. So it assuaged my guilt some, but I didn't write the story, and this happened a number of times. And I would find one excuse or another, and I wrote other books about indigenous people. I worked with these people. I wrote the books you mentioned earlier about shamanism and so forth. And so I kind of, distracted myself and assuaged my guilt and went on with this. And then on 9/11, I was in the Amazon with the Shuar people. I'd taken a group of nonprofit people in to learn from indigenous people in the Amazon. But shortly after that, I came up to New York to Ground Zero, and as I stood there looking down into that terrible pit that's smoldering and it still smelled of burning flesh, I realized I had to write the book. I could no longer defer, that the American people had no understanding of why so many people around the world are angry and frustrated and terrified, and that I had to take responsibility for what happened at 9/11. And in fact, we all have to take a certain responsibility, which is not in any way to condone mass murder by anybody ever. I'm not condoning that in any way. But I did realize that the American people needed to understand why there's so much anger around the world. I had to write the book. So this time, I didn't tell anyone I was writing, and even my wife and daughter, they knew I was writing something, but they didn't know what. I didn't reach out to other people. It made it a little more difficult to write it. But finally, I got it in the hands of a very good New York agent, and he sent it out to publishers. At that point, this manuscript becomes my best insurance policy, because at that point, if something strange happens to me, including now, suddenly the book will sell, even though it's been a bestseller for a long time, it will sell a lot more copies if something happens. People sometimes laugh and say, do you worry that your publisher may be trying to assassinate you? Because it would certainly help book sales. I don't worry about it. But, so at that point, once I got the manuscript there, it became my insurance policy.